Thank you for your presence today. In just a few moments, I will ask Mr. Doug Bach, County Administrator, to step up to the podium to introduce the next Police Chief of the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. There are few roles in city government as integral to the progress of a city as the Chief of Police. And so the process by which a chief is selected must be carefully executed. The process must solicit extensive input from the governing body, from our community, from police department staff, from officers on the streets. The deliberation process must follow to the letter what the charter of the unified government has laid down, the charter being the final word of the citizens of Wyandotte County. The process must be fair, consistent, transparent, open to engagement, and ultimately, it must bring forward qualified candidates who have demonstrated leadership skills in very difficult circumstances. I believe the process that the charter has set forth has been followed consistently, that we have enabled extensive input by our community, by our law enforcement personnel, by our governing body, and that in fact the process delivered to us 4 excellent finalists, each of whom exhibited a wide range of skills, experiences, and insights. Each one showed heartfelt passion for the work of law enforcement, for their own police departments, and for the communities they serve. I would suggest that the final decision was not an easy one, simply because each of the 4 finalists brought their own set of exceptional strengths to the table. On behalf of our city, I want to extend sincere gratitude to Chief Mike York for serving our residents so well these past 2 years. I also want to thank our community for their input. I thank our governing body for their frankness in their own recommendations. I thank our administration for the care they showed in this process. And I want to thank all who applied for this position, for your willingness to lead, for your own passion and commitment to your fellow officers and the communities you serve. I offer a special debt of gratitude to all of our law enforcement personnel. Each day, when they leave their homes, they know what they have laid on the line. We must be grateful to them for stepping in the line of danger for us. I would ask all, give the new chief the support that he will need to protect, to serve, and to improve the quality of life of all residents of Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you. At this time, I would ask Mr. Bach to please step forward to the podium.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Bach, County Administrator for the Unified Government. When I began this process over a year ago in 2020, it was one where I'd set out at that point thinking we would be appointing a chief during that year. However, with the pandemic that came on, it kind of led to the continued work that I wasn't able to do all the community input that I would have otherwise wished I could have done during 2020. So I asked Interim Chief York to continue through that process, and I thank him very much for his service that's been extending now past a year and a half. Chief York is not able to be here this morning because he already had family commitments, but I do wish to thank him for his service and his commitment to our community for the last year and a half and all his years of service in the police department. This process, as the mayor said, did lead us to get to 4 very strong candidates who could come in, and any one of them could have took on this job to move forward. But it was a process we were able to go through, vet through, and find who is the best candidate to come in and lead our community at this time. And today, I'm very proud to announce Carl Oakman as our next Chief of Police for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. Carl comes to us with 29 years of experience. Thank you. Carl comes to us with 29 years of experience with Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Through his years, he's developed many different initiatives, led the efforts in community policing that they've had, worked on inclusion, youth engagement, excelled in recruitment and officer wellness. Carl also grew up in Kansas City, Kansas as a youth, went through grade school, junior high, and high school in our community before he went to serve in Kansas City, Missouri. When I went through the additional background work on Deputy Chief Oakman over in Kansas City, Missouri, every person that I talked to would always lead with comments about he's a very good man, and then talk about all the high marks, all the work he'd done in the community, how he'd served people, how his commitment to officers, and just to everyone he worked with over the years. I'm very proud to bring him in as the next Chief of Police for Kansas City, Kansas. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll present to you the next Chief of Police, Carl Oakman.
Wow, this is pretty exciting. Few people have the opportunity to return home, and I want to just start off by any young people that are watching this today, just let you understand that you can achieve your goals and dreams. And I ask that adults make sure that you take the time to mentor young people, because I tell you, look at myself, a young man who grew up in the housing projects in Argentina. I'm returning about 30 years later as the Chief of Police of that same community. And that was only the result of adults taking the time to lead and guide me in the right direction. So good morning to everyone. I would like to, first off, as always, have to thank God for putting me in this position. And without that, there's no way where you will end up, but thanks to the grace of God, I'm standing here today. I like to thank Doug Bach and Mayor Alvey and all the members of the Wyandotte County Commission for this opportunity. Also, the members of the County Administrator's Office and the Human Resources Division for administering a very professional process. And I would also like to thank the other three finalists. I had an opportunity for 2 days to meet 3 wonderful people, and I thank you for that opportunity. And also, I'd like to thank the Kansas City, Kansas community and all the members of the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department for entrusting me with the responsibility to lead and guide them into the future. That is very important to me, to not only have the support from the community, but also the support from the members of the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. As your new chief, I will work with the staff and community to build on the department's successes and develop creative and innovative strategies to address our challenges. And I have 3 simple goals for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. That is, strengthen relationships with all members of the community to reduce crime, improve trust, and recruitment. Continue to develop a diverse professional workforce through transparency, officer wellness, training, and career development. And last but not least, improve efficiency through the use of technology and resource allocation. And those are my goals for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. And like I said, I thank you for this opportunity. And all of this would not be possible if it wasn't for my family, which is here today, my beautiful wife, Riddell, of 27 years, and my son, Joshua. My older son couldn't be with us today because he's currently in the police academy. So just thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with the members of the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department and continuing to build trust in this beautiful community of Wyandotte County that raised me and made me the person that I am today. Thank you. Sorry, I think I'm getting used to this chief thing already, leaving before the questions. So I will take questions at this point.
Why was it important for you to come back here? You could retire from KCMO. You had that threshold. Why was it important to come back here?
Well, as I mentioned, this community raised me. This community gave me the resources and the opportunity when I needed it the most. And most of you may not know my story, but my father died when I was 6, and my mother died when I was 11. So this community was able to comfort me, give me the resources, and support me to make me the person that I am today. So I see this as an opportunity to give back to the community that raised me.
I know that there's been a lot of issues related to police-community relations. What's the first thing that you're going to do when do you officially start?
I'm planning on starting in June. And to follow up on your question, the first thing you have to do is listen, meet people, listen, and begin to build trust internally and externally, and make sure that the first thing that I'm going to do is make sure I create an environment within the police department where every last member feel valued, that they have the opportunity for input, and that they can be creative and innovative and offer ideals to some of the challenges that we're facing as a community.
Hey, some folks on the whole broad issue of community relations think that police training is something that has to be addressed. Do you have thoughts on whether or not the training for this department has to be improved or defined now?
I think not just this police department in general. I think all police departments are looking at the way we train, especially around mental health and de-escalation. And Kansas City, Kansas Police Department is no different than any other police department in the country. We understand in policing that we have to be flexible. We have to learn to do things differently, while at the same time making sure that we put the right training in place so that we could have a excellent community, as well as ensuring that our officers come home at night.
What kind of recruitment efforts are you going to do to try to make sure that you have a diverse police force?
Well, there's several things that we can do. I think the first thing we need to do is look at the process in general. And as I said, this is not specific to Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. This is an issue around the country. So the first step, I would look at the process. As I sometimes I make the statement that when we look at changing and progressing, we have to do that. As I'm looking around, as I always say this, I don't see anyone in here dressed with clothing from the 1970s, and I doubt anyone drove a vehicle from the 1970s, so why are we still hiring and recruiting policing like it's the 1970s? So those are some things we can look at, as well as some specific initiatives that I would try to work with staff to implement, which is part of a larger strategic plan that I have for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department.
Chief, what is going to be your administration's approach towards federal immigration and call for cooperation from the local police to assist the federal immigration folks here in Kansas City, Kansas?
I think it's, when you look at, and I believe Kansas City, Kansas, as well as Kansas City, Missouri for 29 years, we do not get involved in federal immigration. We will assist when it comes to issues of public safety, and that's what we're all sworn to do. But when you talk about documented or undocumented members in the community, they're all part of the community. And as a police department, we have to make sure that we're building trust so we can establish relationships with that part of the community. And there are a few initiatives that I would put in place to ensure that we continue to build trust in that community.
Like what?
Such as creating a Hispanic community liaison officer. Also, Kansas City, Kansas does the Citizens Police Academy, but also exploring the possibility of having a Spanish language community policing academy, Citizens Academy, to understand the police, our purpose, how we operate, and how that community can be a partner in our overall fight to reduce crime and improve quality of life for everyone in the community.
Do you think this department and police in general has a credibility gap with regular citizens, black, white, Hispanic, and different?
Yeah, I think that's a problem that we saw in 2020. Some is based on facts, some is based on perception, and as we all know, a person's perception is their reality. So one thing we have to do as a police department is continue to work on the perception, and some things you can do is just explain to the community the reasons why we do what we do through transparency, just giving updates on some of the positive things that the police department is doing in the community. And I can tell you, my 29 years, the police department has always struggled in telling the community the positive things that we do each and every day. And I think we have to also put a purpose on that to make sure that the community knows there are great things that the police department is doing right in our community. That is negative. J.C. Harmon. Yes. The day I start is the day I take over. June.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the questions.